Great.
Well, gratitude.
Again, everybody, thank you for coming today for our second Scale Climate Action meetup in Bali. And a big thank you and so much gratitude to Rob Dubois for hosting us at the beautiful Villa Krtajna. Thank you we just had a wonderful kind of walkthrough and tour where he went into a lot of detail. I'm hoping he might recap some of this for folks that were not able to actually attend. But I wanted to give Rob really the floor first to, kind of talk about his vision, and then we'd love to invite questions from the audience. And I know there's a lot of folks that are very passionate and are involved in the industry, and we'd really love to have an interactive discussion so that we can share ideas and build what this future looks like together. We know we've got a lot of challenges as humanity to really become more sustainable and address a lot of the greenhouse gas emissions that come from the construction industry. It's about 50% of the total emissions, so we've got a big job ahead of us. So with that in mind, let's start with Rob. I'd love to hear about your vision for what sustainable living looks like, the idea of biophilic design, and your intention with the house and what you've been able to achieve here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen, for inviting me and all these amazing people. I didn't set out to inspire people when I built Krtajna. However, as a wonderful experience for me, that I've just taken the tour of this house with a group of very interested people, something I've done many times, and I'm inspired by people, the feedback from people, and that people then go away and actually take this inspiration and action, turn it into an actionable item. And I really talk about doing something, don't do nothing. Some of the technologies here are a little bit more complicated and cost a bit more, and some of them really just require thought. If I'd thought of that before I started building, I could have done that. So that just requires knowledge, and there is a lot of collected knowledge in this, literally just sitting in this room right now. And certainly up to this point, I've always been open to collaborate, or I've looked at drawings, or I've given input. Someone I know, maybe, that has a little project. So I'm very happy to be of service and to pay it forward, if you will. So this house, in fact, beside this house there's another two houses. So these three houses are really an expression of my expansion into sustainable and more impactful, or less impactful, should I say, design. So as the three houses evolved and the process unfolded, we incorporated more and more features in the house that were more impactful in terms of water, wastewater, organic food production, all the way through to lowering our energy footprint, low chemical use in the pool, less air conditioning because of design, because of cross-flow ventilation. So a lot of this was either stuff that I studied or researched, or looked on various media channels to understand and learn about how can I build a better house. And not with a view to it being this very special and unique, would only appeal to someone, a very niche market. I wanted to have a more global approach. And I'm not certainly saying that this house would appeal to everyone, but a lot of people love it, and a lot of people are inspired by it, and a lot of people want to take the knowledge and the technology that we've put into this house, and it inspires them to do their version of something. So that's kind of what this house represented for me. And as we talked about, it's low impact in terms of energy consumption, in terms of water consumption, in terms of waste production. We grow food, so we're less impactful on our food requirement. And we also contribute financially to the running of the house by having a separate dwelling which is attached to the house. So low impact, I guess, would be one of the sort of underlying principles, if you will, of the house. I often get asked the question, so what's next, Rob? The true answer is I don't know, but what I do know of the exact design, but what I do know, it will be more green spaces, taking a lot of the technologies that we put into this house, which overall I have to say have worked really, really well. So scaling them or refining them or adjusting them and then creating a home that's, for example, as I said to the guys here, it is a large concrete house, will be to reduce that, to look at alternative materials of how else can I build a house out of. So it's really an expansion of the idea of Krtajna and what was created. This house is now going to be offered on the market for sale, not because I don't love it, probably quite the opposite, I really love it. But I want to explore what else can I do, what's next. So I guess it's that thirst for knowledge. I love a project, and really in that process, who else can I inspire in other ways? And then potentially, as I touched on briefly with Jen before we started the whole thing, is that the bigger vision is to acquire, an area. It's not about me buying a piece of land, acquiring an area that a group of people have influence over, that we can master plan something to be less impactful and less resource hungry, and produce, potentially, composting or processing food waste, and potentially on a river, for example, where we generate our own electricity supply, that kind of thing. And how can we do that in a kind of a neighbourhood or a district kind of? Why something so grand? Because it encompasses, so we end up being the caretakers of a bigger piece of land. And again, I emphasise it's not about ownership and owning a big piece of land, from an ego-fueled way. It's actually coming from a place of love and want to preserve this for future generations. So that's what I would call my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal.
Rob, there's so many ideas and themes in your vision and what you've done so far. A lot of what we do is looking at how we mainstream these ideas and this beautiful inspiration. So we've talked a little bit, but I'd love for you to share what you see as the challenges and opportunities for bringing these ideas to more people, again, not only in Bali and beyond, but also out into the local communities, and making this idea of sustainability and regeneration something that we all own and is built into our lives.
I'll answer that question this way. I was recently introduced to a social housing project which is based up in Java, and it's basically to create low-cost housing for the industrial and technology parks up there, which are just exploding because they're creating tax-free environments up there, and they make it very financially incentivizing companies to come in because they have an extraordinary workforce. And these workers will come in and they need somewhere to live. And I was introduced to this project, and I'm certainly not sitting here telling you that it's a sustainable project. That would be a dream and a vision to eventually. But when I was looking at the project, I said, would you be open to, adding a couple of sustainable principles? And they said, what do you mean, Pat? And I said, can we capture some water off the roof and put it in a tank? Yeah. Can we put in a water filter, either, a Navasa or a Terra or something, water filter, so we can reduce the transport of these horrible plastic bottles of water, which I've never bought in my life. I just detest them. So can we do that? And maybe when we're doing the planting, maybe we can plant a couple of trees in the garden that produce some food. And I went, Oh, okay, Pat. So that's just a simple example of do something, don't do nothing. A water filter, grow some food. The budget allows, let's put a tank in. And and that's just my simple version. And obviously, you guys have some ideas around that. So that's one way I would talk about it. If you want to say this is the other end of the spectrum, so there's the simple social housing. How can that be made a little less impactful? And at this end of the spectrum. So what I mean, I guess, is if we encompass it in that way, it's inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's not because you've got a bag of money you can be sustainable. Well, you don't need a bag of money to be sustainable. You just need to have the thought, the support, the education to help in that way. And again, the collective wisdom in this group and other groups that we are part of, can help in that way. There's a lovely man, Pat Janur, who's a Rice for Plastic was his initial thing. Now it's around food and composting, and which is bringing the technology, if you will, back to how, for example, a place like Bali actually was, where there wasn't plastic, and they threw their food into a hole in the ground. Gee whiz, and then it composted itself. Wow. So we've gone away from that for some reason. So let's go back, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's go back and let's embrace some of the ancient technologies that actually, which is where we've evolved from, or have we de-evolved, is my question, in certain ways. And I know Cedric is very, very skilled in this topic.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about that relationship with nature and this idea of biophilic design and the elements of wellness that you brought into this space. I'd love for you to just talk about that experience of the house and what you've seen, what you've sought to really create here, and how you think that also might be, again, going back to ancient practices where we get closer again to the land and we're stewards of the land.
Yeah, look, I think there's so many different facets to this. So say, for example, we're just coming up to the evening hours, and what you'll see around the house is this very indirect warm glow of the lighting, which actually reduces the impact of blue light, like we hear about on the computers and so on. So by keeping the lighting, the ambient lighting, as you transition from day to night, it's actually very calming to the circadian rhythm, to your nervous system, and it actually prepares you for deep and meaningful rest, which a lot of the world are not having. So that's just a practical aspect. Behind me is a beautiful river, and we're very blessed on this part of the river. We have rapids in this river, and that does two things. We have the beautiful soothing sound. It can be a bit of a soothing roar in the wet season, but the soothing sound. And that, the mixing of the water actually releases oxygen out of the water, and you create this kind of pranic, if you will, or an O2 enriched kind of environment. The pool, for example, is low chemical, so it's soothing in its experience without putting toxicity into your body. Obviously, the fact where we're talking about growing food. You, as a part of the microbiome of the house, you actually are contributing nutrients to the food that you're taking from the garden. So there's another, not an esoteric, that's a factual aspect of the circular aspect of the house. We went downstairs and we looked at the dome, and again, I have to say that's an in-body and out-of-body experience depending on whatever your practice is, whether you want to dance like no one's watching or lie there in peace and silence, or turn on your favourite musical track or sound healing. So there's a healing aspect of that. So the house is biophilic in its nature in that we bring the outside in and the inside out. You can feel the breeze and the cross-flow ventilation through the house, so we don't block the air. I mean, we have the ability to do that, but as a generalisation, so we have a flow of air throughout the whole house. We don't have any mould. There are no dead corners. There's no dark spaces where mould. We have created environments where mould can grow, and those of you that know Bali or have lived in the tropics know that's a huge issue, and a lot of people suffer from terrible diseases from mould toxicity. So we address all of those, I guess, or many of those different aspects by that. We circulate air constantly, either through mechanical or passive means as well. What else? What else have I missed? What else have I missed? How's that?
That's
Is
a
that
pretty
enough?
good summary. That's a
Is
pretty
that
good
enough?
summary.
That'll do.
And
Okay.
so just as
Yeah.
a definition, like to distinguish between sustainable and biophilic. Biophilic is kind of focused on just the relationship with the inside and the outside and the natural and the built. And sustainability might come in as part of that, but it's not necessarily a goal of biophilic design, or is it? I'm just curious as to kind of how you differentiate. Are they two separate things, or are they essentially the two words?
Yeah. There's probably some people that are more qualified to answer that question, but I'll give it a go. So my understanding of biophilic was a term that was not in my mind, or I even had learnt about when I built the house. So it was a term that I embraced because I went, oh wow, I built a biophilic house. So it was a label that I've added to the house later on, which my simple interpretation is about bringing the inside out and the outside in. Sustainable. What's sustainable thing? I think for example, one of the big focuses on this house is water. So is using less water something that I would put firmly in the sustainable sort of aspect? Yes. So we use less water, we use less power, we use less food. So I would talk about this more sustainable aspect in that way, and the biophilic more specifically a way something was designed specifically.
Right.
But I think it's kind of a fuzzy line.
Yeah.
You had mentioned obviously the house is made of concrete, and we know that big carbon footprint is in construction materials, and it's one of our biggest challenges. So talk to us about, I guess, some of the other materials that we could be using, especially as we think about the amount of growth and the amount of building that's happening in Bali, in Southeast Asia, in Asia more generally, in the developing world, and your thoughts around use of other materials and how we can really push the envelope there.
Because I haven't personally built with alternative materials, some of this is anecdotal and some of it I've heard about. So I have a friend here in Bali that's created a company called EcoCrete, and his name's Richie. And EcoCrete is they use fly ash, which is the waste product from the coal-fired power stations. Hiss boo, coal-fired power stations, agreed. However, can we then take that, and is that less impactful in terms of digging stuff out of the ground? I mean, you mix it with cement, just to be clear, but we're talking about reducing. So there's a technology exists. Randomly, or not, last week I bumped into the guy up in Sulawesi, who, I beg your pardon, Sumatra, who actually has a project where he supplies pellets from agri-forest projects that have been where sustainable land has been felled for wood production, and he takes the biomass out of those forests, which would normally just be lying there, and he pelletizes it and he sells it on to the PLN. What that does, it's a gasification process. What it does is it reduces the amount of coal they use, and interestingly, it reduces the noxious emissions from the power plants by up to 40 to 50%. They've tested that. So it's fascinating. So then he plugs into there, and then that plugs into fly ash, which then comes to EcoCrete. So it's an interesting connection, which I literally just found out about last week. And he didn't even know about the EcoCrete aspect of it, so I've put them together. So they're having a conversation now. So that's one that I know of. There's another technology which is they've started up. There's a plant in Lombok where they produce a mixture of sawdust and recycled plastic, and they are rebuilding, I should say, the 250 schools in Lombok, which was destroyed by the earthquake. And apparently the technology's out of Finland. I got asked about VOCs and microplastics and stuff, and I'm not an authority on that, so I'm not going to just rabbit on about stuff I don't know about.
They build a new factory.
They do. They just launched it, a couple of months ago. Yeah, they're good friends of mine. Amazing. I haven't got over there yet. So
Yeah, we invited them over.
Because they just released a study today. It's leaking cadmium, arsenic, and other materials, so it's leaking also from the.
Wow.
But that's not being used that's used in the coal-fired power stations, and then they use the fly ash for the eco-creep. But I don't know the credentials of the eco-creep.
There's some problem with the fly ash.
Yeah.
Actually, Richie wants to get rid of the fly ash.
Oh, does he?
As
Okay.
alternative.
Okay.
Because I think fly ash has been used for a long time in concrete, right? Because I think it was cheaper than the cement, so it was used as a sort of
Well, not in Indonesia, as far as I know. Maybe there's a
from the coal factory, from the coal, so
Yeah.
Right.
that's the main problem.
right.
So it's the fly ash from other materials,
Right.
and we also decrease the amount of toxic waste.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
then
some emerging
there's obviously
solutions.
there's some, and obviously I understand the technology out of Finland with these press blocks. They have certificates and they've done studies and stuff. I mean, this is a company, I don't know, like I said, Cedric's better positioned maybe to speak more of that. I can just more speak of stuff that I know about. Another friend of mine who's unfortunately wasn't able to make it today, he has other materials which use limestone, which is a limestone render. This is from Toby. And basalt, reinforcing material, which is, I don't know if you've seen it, it's pretty interesting technology. So, and then you have places like Sungai Watch, for example, which some of us have been in the rivers and the barriers where they use the beautiful We-Do machinery to extrude panels.
Yeah.
And again, I understand there are issues with microplastics and so on, but I mean these are some of the technologies. And of course, years and years ago, the very first structure I built here was bamboo, and that has an extraordinary sustainable credentials. And then someone like Toby has these joiners which made are out of bio-epoxy, would you believe, which is a totally non-toxic epoxy which is available. I'm actually building a surfboard right now out of bio-epoxy. So they're the ones that I can specifically speak to. So what would I build with? I can't say what I'm going to build with in the next time that I build. But what I do know is I'm going to explore these technologies, and with the connections I'm growing, more technologies, and let's see what's possible.
Great. I want to open it up to the floor and see if there's any questions from the audience. We covered a lot during the tour, so no burning questions. I have a lot of other questions. I'm happy to keep asking. So.
There's one, Jen, actually. I think it follows on from what Rob was saying. In terms of working, all these other alternatives that are out there, what's the? I'm assuming that they are just better on the impact and they're better in terms of sustainability. What are the key challenges that prevent them just being mainstream? Is it skills? Is it just more expensive to source? It makes the build more expensive? Is it finding people who can work with those? Is it aesthetics? Demand isn't there. People want concrete houses.
Look, I think I can answer that in a few ways, and Cedric's very positioned, to help me with this. But, like, say for example, if you were talking about one of these block technologies, they use a glue system. So the physical installation of the blocks is not special technology. Like, say for example, the sustainable rendering. I have a friend doing a sustainable rendering project now. He's got guys that can render, so that technology is not special. Maybe some of the other more alternative type things are special, but there's bamboo specialists. So to answer your question, what is the barrier? I haven't done a cost analysis specifically of building a building in this way, this way, this way. So I think that would be a valuable cost comparison. For example, if you were to use a simple, I don't know the right terminologies, the simple concrete block, like literally that just looks like cement, the cheap talking about, I think they're about 2,000 rupiah, as opposed to using a Batako block, which is the white, or the Hebel, I beg your pardon, the Hebel block, which is a white one you quite often see villas being built in super light, great acoustic material, so on and so on, and that's about 10,000 rupiah. So in that particular one, I can tell you there's a 5-to-1 cost differential in that particular example. But in terms of, I don't think that I'm not aware of, and please correct me, there's extraordinary differences in the costs of the materials that you choose if, for example, you're building a cement house and use some alternative technology. If you're building a wooden house, versus building a bamboo house, I think that there is where you're going to see the big differences. And wooden houses, broadly speaking, if you're doing that out of a sustainable timber, if you can really, truly follow the supply chain of a regenerative wooden house, extremely difficult, because there's all sorts of tricks that they use to make it look like it's regenerative. This is through my builder. I'm told now to build a significant wooden house is far more expensive than a concrete house. If anyone else has some knowledge of that, please tell me, but that's what I'm told. To do it out of quality wood, yes, you can throw one up.
So in general, the price of sustainable materials is way higher than the standard one, because you source the product. For example, I'm speaking about the plastic, when you say the press, they take all the processes made on site. So from the processing the trash, the shredding, cleaning, pressing, then polishing, every process is made in-house. It's implied like energy cost, man work also, there's a lot of man work. So you can start like small unit and a small place like garage in your backyard, but then when it's speaking about production, then you have to buy machines that's not sourced in Indonesia. You have to source them from China or Taiwan, somewhere else, because in Indonesia they will propose you the machine, but the quality is not good. The metal, everything is lower grade. Right. So if you buy a machine with a low cost in Indonesia, and then 3 months after you cannot source the part or the spare part for the machine, then your production is down, and we need to keep up with that. To be financially viable, we need a lot of production.
Right.
So if you include all those costs, you lose money more. So that's why a company like Swing and Wedge, they don't rely on the product, they rely on the fundings they get from the support.
Right.
But then with this, you have more, give a demonstration. You can do it locally, and then other people will take the charge also to do the shredding the plastic, then selling to another one, and then all and full a full system that depends on each other. One is selling the plastic to another, one is pressing, one is doing the object from this, and everyone strive with this system. So you reduce the cost also because you delegate to other people. You cannot do everything in home. The whole product to final product is impossible. You cannot get something here.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing I would consider,
and you have always to make compromise.
absolutely.
You cannot be fully sustainable. Like you would like to be fully sustainable, but you have to compromise with certain aspect, like technical aspect or legal aspect also. The environment, the community. I know that Tichy has a lot of to do with you want to use less concrete also for its construction, but a lot of other people live from that, so they come to him and say, you cannot do that here.
I think I probably, one of the, and yes to everything, I agree fully with what you're saying. And one of the things as you were speaking, I was just really kind of thinking about we do live in a tropical environment, and it's kind of almost like a less is more kind of approach, where you might use a slightly more expensive material, but kind of, if you build it cleverly, you might be able to actually use less material. And one of the things that I would play with, and I don't have a design of a house, but is kind of, it's got with this movable wall kind of concept of these ideas of like, oh wow, I want this really big open space. Oh, actually, but I want to move this wall over here and there's my office. But, I'm going to host something with a bunch of people this weekend, and I'm just going to slide the walls back. And so there's kind of a little bit of a kind of a convertible kind of space, and obviously different shapes and different sizes for different, families and different uses. So I just wonder if there's some efficiencies in that design, process. So you can afford, if you were looking at from a budget perspective, well, actually, I can choose some slightly more expensive, more sustainable material, but I can actually achieve that by playing with the design a little bit. That's what I wonder.
And Rob, to that point, we were talking about, we know globally the cost of housing and affordable housing is such an issue in so many places. How might we rethink how much space we need as individuals, how much space we can share, how we might build new models of living together, which probably tap into ancient ways of living and traditional ways of living, and to create more vibrant, healthy, well communities as we go forward. And we've talked a little bit about this personally, but I'd love for you to share some of the ideas you've been exploring and how we might build more of a circular system in the process too.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I have I have a very specific kind of view around this, and it's not we touched on earlier, it's not an ego-driven thing about acquiring or having a piece of land. It's about stewardship. It's about caring. Why would I, as a single man wanting to, create something, why would I want a really big piece of land? Basically because I want to preserve it. And it's not about me having, hey, look at my big piece of land. It's about growing food. If we look at the principles of permaculture, or even better, let's look at the principles of Trihita Karana, which is part of the beautiful Balinese philosophy of life, of their belief systems. And there's a few more people here that are a bit more skilled at explaining it, but in the most simple way, I'll speak to permaculture, is around caring for people, caring for the planet, and creating abundance. Well, as I said, there are certain times we have so much food here, we just give it away. First, I hand it to the staff. If they don't have it, I take it to your village. So why would I, in the concept of what we're talking about, why would I want to steward a big piece of land? Because I'm interested in this. I'm interested in preserving it and growing soil and growing food and creating abundance collectively. Not, hey, look at me, I'm growing a lot of food. It's collectively. So how can we, work together to create that? So one of the conversations at my very initial meeting with Jen, I was most inspired by her when she talked about taking an existing structure and how could she modify that existing structure to meet her current needs and wants. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's a fantastic approach. I haven't done that yet, but it's firmly on my radar to explore that. And there's a practical and there's a commercial aspect to it. And just look and say, how much can we do? And where's that tipping point? And you can work that out. And obviously every project like that reuse project. And then, you know, maybe it's not every single person in the district has a swimming pool. Maybe there's one swimming pool. And maybe, you know, and it's low or no chemical. And maybe there's a few shared resources, but maybe you kind of want to live in your own space. That's me. But I'm happy to go and jump in the pool and bump into Scott and say, hey boys, how you going? Or can you feed the dog? I'm going out. That concept is actually kind of sort of where I've ended up, you know, where I live now, is a little bit like that. So it's actually a neighbourhood with a shared pool environment. So it's an really interesting social experiment, actually. So that's kind of what I kind of see. And the last part of that was really trying to work out a way that, let's say in this district, let's call it, how it's inclusive, not exclusive. So, because it would be easy to say, hey, here's this big area, I've got a bag of money of a certain size, I can come and live there. But hang on, my goddaughter and her single mum, they don't have a bigger bag of money as me, well, they can't live here. So how can we test that? How can we stretch that? How can we create that? Because what I've realised is that's neighbourhood, that's district, that's connection, not a bunch of people that have the same size bag of money, or at least the same size bag of money that can go, right, I'm going to have this large piece of land, it's my land, because I've got, my bag is this big and I can have it, and I'm going to surround myself with a bunch of other people that have got this. It's kind of like, is that where I want to live? No, it's not where I want to live. Not at all. Quite the opposite. So how can we create this inclusive, let's call it district, neighbourhood, what do you want to call it?
Wow.
I don't have the answer to that, by the way. But there's some very clever people in this room that know stuff.
Affordability and sharing resources.
Exactly, and exchange. Oh, wow, what do you do? Oh, I'm a coach, or I'm a yoga teacher, or I'm a something. Oh, okay, cool, all right. You're adding value in a different way. You know, a bag of money is one measure of value. So.
In Australia, I still have property in Australia, and when I was living there, it's rented at the moment, but when I was living there, it's 200 acres.
Wow.
Planted 10,000 trees along the river and try to instill in other people in that neighbourhood. And what I found living in that neighbourhood is there's a very broad spectrum of different socio-economic people that live there, but having access to the land, as you say, they can grow lots of stuff. So there's a huge transfer of wealth just through swapping food. You know, and I think it can work quite well. But I think it requires a certain size for it to be workable as well. If it's too small, it doesn't work. And if it gets too big, it gets too complicated.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm working on a project in Lombok that has got the potential to be pretty interesting over the next few years.
That's the one in southern Lombok.
Yeah.
Yes, Eco Trans, is it? Was it? What's it called? I can't remember the name.
Eco Regions.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I met the guys there.
So,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how it pans out in the next couple of years. So they haven't physically done anything on site yet, but they're just about to. So.
Yeah.
And they've written a sustainable development guideline for all of the people that want to move into the area.
Okay. Yeah.
Which it's got some good aspects to it. So how big is the solar system that you've got on this place?
12 kilowatts.
12?
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
So on that, my solar man's here, he had to go. So excess power that we generate between about 8:30 and 4 p.m. we generate excess, we sell that back to the electricity company here at the rate of about 65%. So we use that. So we have it's called net metering. So each month I get a bill and it shows me this, and it's about 5 years return on investment currently, yeah. Benoit, the man that installed that system that was here, I can't speak highly enough of him. Very, 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 very good operator, excellent after-sales service.
Yeah, I've got 15 kilowatts in Australia, but the Australian government sort of wangled people.
Yeah.
You get 5 cents a kilowatt in Australia.
Five.
And they sell that for 48 cents. So it's just absolute pure robbery.
Whoa, 10%. Yeah, someone told me it was around 10% on that. Yeah. 65. I feel really good about my 65.
Yeah. And the roof space, did you ever think of maybe using the roof space as part of your treatment system? So having green roof as part of your treatment system?
So you're talking about the actual rooftop?
Yeah.
The treatment system of what?
So you've got the treatment system here, which is
wastewater.
Yeah, your wastewater treatment system.
To use the roof? I mean, the roof right now, we didn't go up to the roof. That was the last piece. I thought we were all running on empty. The roof system is how we capture rainwater. So that's a rainwater catchment area. So we have covered the roof with a geotextile, and it's covered in volcanic rocks. So what that does is it has somewhat of a filtering effect, and we capture water for the tank. But in terms of, you mean taking the wastewater and putting it up on the roof?
Yeah, they're part of it. Yeah. Just because
You're talking about like having a green roof, like soil up there and plants.
Yeah.
Look, I considered it. We have a row of plants up there which are watered by that system. A green roof concept. Look, for sure, we considered it. Could it be turned into a green? Well, it would impact on the rainwater catchment. I think you'd have to then have a sort of a filtration system on it.
I guess, I think it looks like quite a big roof.
It is, yeah, it is, yeah.
There's a lot of maintenance also. If you're overgrowing, then the weight is also important. And a lot of maintenance. You need to bring a guy
Not
up
necessarily.
there.
Like you can grow green roofs.
What I was going to put on, like by default, if you go up there, and I'm happy to show you anytime, Ruds, by default, what I'm starting to see is pockets of greenery starting to grow, because it's geotextile and basalt, and there's some obviously debris and dust. Sorry, thank you, Scott. Yeah, and it's actually so. It wouldn't surprise me in about 5 years if it's kind of half green.
Yeah.
So I kind of smiled when I saw it.
Yeah.
And the other idea for me, which I didn't get around to doing, was putting some beehives up there. I've had someone come and have a look, and they would have worked quite well up there. So is it an underutilised space? For sure. Absolutely, yeah. Could we do more? For absolute, no question.
Amazing.
No
Next
question.
project.
Your wastewater system will be running more efficiently having access to direct sunlight as well.
I don't doubt that, but the system works incredibly well. I could go get a glass, and I'll give you that glass, and you could look at that water. It looks like drinking water. Certainly, I'm not saying drink it, but it actually works extremely well. The first 2 or 3 months, if anyone's considering that, I can say it took a little while for the microbiome to kind of settle in inverted commas. Literally, I can go and I'll show you a glass of that water.
Right.
That's how good it works. No. So, I'm really into the keep it simple, although this seems complicated, but just that keep it simple thing.
Great.
Maybe.
And on that note, thank you, Rob. You've really given us so much time and so much energy. Thank you for all the inspiration and the passion you bring to this space, and for being such an incredible contributor to the Balinese community and in the Indonesian community as well. And a big thank you from everyone here for hosting us and sharing your philosophy on sustainable building. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You full of gratitude. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time and your energy and your attention. It really is inspiring for when I see people that are interested in what I'm talking about. It inspires me to share. So you know, a few people have asked me what do I do or whatever. My whole thing is about being of service. If there's anything that I've spoken about today, if there's any wisdom, if you've got some plans or drawings, or you just want to riff or look at some land or talk about something, I'm around. I'm generally available and very much. And I've talked to Jen. I'm in the beginning stages. I'm not going to reveal anything of maybe finding that magical BHAG piece of land. So at the embryonic stages. So I'll leave it there. Not a man of mystery. It's just I just don't have enough information about it yet. So is that and. Are you guys connected in a group somehow?
Yeah, we have a WhatsApp group for Scale Climate Action.
So feel free to put me in there, and again, really happy to contribute if I can. And I believe in what you guys are standing for and what you want to create, and let's inspire more people.
Great. We would love to have you as part of the community, so thank you.
Sure, yeah. Sadly.
I'm admiring the artwork of your piping. It's really a piece of, it's an art down there.
The piping in the basement.
Yeah, on the basement.
I love you. Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That is require months and months of thinking, I am pretty sure.
I
I love it. And my question to that, we are thinking about long-term and more sustainable projects. I'm growing up in a village in East Java where bamboo was growing different kinds. And we
Yes.
use bamboo a lot to transfer water.
yes.
Will that be feasible? With the treatment, I'm not sure about, I don't know anything about the treatment, but I think the Green School doing something with that. Would that be possible? Because you have the small, tiny bamboo that you can
I understand.
cross, yeah. But bamboo have those thing in the middle. But in my childhood, we have a river. We push that and then becoming like a pipe. Will that be something that you think about to build in the future? Or
You mean in a pool, dear? Oof, I don't know. Maybe Cedric's in a better position. I would experiment with it in a more local type house. So would I put bamboo piping in a concrete house? I'm gonna. You'd be better than me more to do that. I don't think I'm ready to test that one.
yeah, maybe it's a treatment that what the Green School Elora does with
They
the
do
treatment.
borax. It's a chemical treatment.
So it's not feasible because of the treatment. Because if you don't
Yeah,
treat it, then
otherwise they use also for the gutter, they use the coating, the copper plate. also.
Copper, yeah, they use a lot of copper, yeah. Just one thing I want to do, one last thing. I just wanted to make a shout out. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us, is Pakadek Adi Saputra. I've done a number of projects with him. He's one of my closest and dearest friends. He drew this house. I designed it. He drew this house. And even more, well, as importantly, he executed it. He built it. He built it with his team. And I certainly couldn't have done it myself. I couldn't have done it if I was, saying nice things or yelled and screamed at them and I lived here every day. He got it. He understood the concept. And one of the things that we both embraced and we both acknowledge, and we will do more things together, is we both looked at each other and we just went, we were trying to work out what that magic was. And really what it came down to is we care. We both would look at something like this, and there's some photos of us, like one of us like this and someone's like this, and they go, what's going on? Like, that's not right. There's something wrong. And I'll just give you one last example and then I promise I'll stop. If you look behind in the kitchen, there is a cutout, there's a rectangular cutout in that kitchen which looks through to the next kitchen and through to the staff area. That's an example of that. We looked at it and we went, there's a big cement wall, and then we went around the other side and we realised it's still a big cement wall, and our beautiful helpers are in there, and we wanted them to be included. We didn't want it to be that they're closed away and hidden away behind a wall. So I said, Dad, can we like cut this out? And he looked at it and went, okay, Pa. And he literally just cut the wall out, and I came back the next day and it was done. And that's one of the beautiful things about working with an architect.
So it's,
That's the builder, because he knew what was inside the wall. So we did that, and then he updated the drawing.
yeah.
And Scott knows it's normally a very different process.
Yeah.
Normally, it's a very different process.
Yeah,
So
usually
sorry.
things-
Yeah,
Well,
no.
in Australia, things are designed and they're built as drawn. But in Bali, particularly the concrete houses that I see being constructed, a lot of it is like they pour the concrete and then they sculpt. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I could point out one or two. Honestly, I'd say about 90% of it was done. But to have that, just that
Yeah.
10% artistic, I agree. If it gets more than that, then it starts getting very expensive
Yeah.
and just getting crazy, and it's just a ridiculous
But
use of
you know,
resources.
A lot of stuff here is builds, and then there's these good afterthoughts, and then it's just like, okay, we'll put a concrete saw through there and a jackhammer, and good.
Cedric, have you heard of a technology, I don't know this at all, where they're starting to use, I was inspired by that, recycled concrete, and they're building blocks out of recycled concrete. Someone told me about it a couple of days ago. I don't know anything about it yet.
I know it's mostly waste from ceramics, so tiles and other
ceramics, okay.
Then it's shred and then cooked at high temperature and include in the concrete. So you reduce the usage of concrete, not
Right.
fully.
So that's specifically ceramics. I'll go and ask them. I'll ask them again. Yeah. Okay.
And,
There's a recycling plant.
and at Kevala, when I'm working, my friend was at the meeting last time. She created a full range of kitchenware,
Yes.
fully sourced from waste.
Yeah.
So it's 100%
Wow.
from recycled material.
Okay.
And the clay we use in production is also recycled almost 100%.
Wow.
And
Okay.
we try to scale up the they are building a new annex, and we are I'm in charge to also to make this new factory completely sustainable.
Really?
So
Wow.
now we not release any trash to the waste field.
Fantastic.
Not in the past time they were still releasing some of the trash to, but now it's zero. Even the mold that we use are in limited use. They use like 20 times, maximum 50 times the mold, and then it goes to TPR. It's,
Really?
plaster mold. So
Would it be possible to get a tour of the factory sometime?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'd love that. If we could share that in the group,
Great.
Jen, that'd be amazing.
Yes.
And-
Maybe
and-
we'll have another event and
Yeah, that would be
Tour the
amazing.
factory.
And I'd love to just ask, lastly, a question. Is there anyone contemplating building? Is there anyone thinking about building? Is there anyone about to build? I'm just curious just to understand who's sitting here.
Yeah.
yep.
And what
Level
stage are
one
you,
hands.
would you say?
We're just kind of acquiring the land.
Okay, land acquisition. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Seaban
Mhm.
Private School.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
I actually, before I lived in the eco village of Seaban,
Ah,
so we
okay.
built a place there,
Okay. All right. Okay.
which is its own story in terms of how you
Mhm.
build a communal space on those kind of principles.
Yeah. Great to understand more about that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to chat with you about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And Scott, Kadungu,
Yeah,
sometime?
will be in about, I don't know, 1 year.
Sometime. Yeah. Yeah.
At the current stage, it's sort of like getting married to an Indonesian
It's a priority. Yeah. Yeah.
And then after I marry my partner, things will open up. We'll be able to buy land and
Sure.
rename and
Of
things
course,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
so yeah, legalities,
Yeah. Yeah. Paperwork.
paperwork.
Otto, you said.
Yeah, I was on the way to now I'm relaxed and let's see what's coming up. I'm surfing, so we don't know whether we can.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
I'm a leasehold, and I'm looking at renegotiating the leasehold agreement to have it more extended, so I can rebuild part of the house.
Hmm.
Yeah, with land in Peru. So same thing as the legal process, then
Hmm. Land acquisition. Yeah. There's lots of people in the acquisition phase. What about you, Rudes? Where are you?
Yeah, Lombok, probably in about 18 months.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Excellent.
Another reason to go to Lombok.
And
Cool.
chess, I think, as well.
Mm. Mm.
Mine's not a house per se, it's a movement studio.
There's a what, sorry?
A movement studio.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so a bit of a different
Uh-huh.
spin on things.
So you want to build it or you've built it or?
Well, it's already built,
Okay.
but I'm doing a renovation of it at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
trying to do as much as I can with what I've got.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is also sourcing equipment that's not mass produced either,
Mm.
which is tricky. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it must be, yeah. Mm. Whereabouts is your studio located?
Pantai Lima.
Okay.
Yeah.
Embracing the wellness concept as part of sustainability as well.
What
Is that near the coffee shop?
is the
It's
studio?
next door.
It's the Pilates, studio.
Pilates studio.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've heard about you. I want to talk to you more.
Longevity. as well.
Yes, yeah, hey,
Yeah.
I'm yes, you and I will
That's
talk
the
more.
concept, yeah.
Yes.
So what you're saying, everything you're saying, I'm like, that's kind of what I'm doing, but in a different, just another aspect.
Yeah.
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 So this is phase one, is this studio. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Well,
We'll be
thank-
talking.
Yeah, sounds like there's a lot of follow-up conversations. Thank you, everyone. And we will publish some of the companies we talked about as well from the session. I think there's a long list of innovative companies here that are trying new things. So we'll try to publish some of that in the group too and share that with the community. So thank you
All
again,
right.
Rob.
Thank you. It's a wrap. Thank you, everyone.
Yay.